In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at how to perform a plank correctly. Now, this is probably an exercise you've done before, or a good chance you've done before, but what we do find is many people don't do it correctly. So what we're going to do, part number one, we're going to look at the teaching points. We're basically going to work from the head all the way down to the feet. Then in part two, we're just going to look at a couple of the common mistakes that people make and correct them. Now, this lines up with my How to Build Core Strength and Stability 12-week program. So this is an online program which you can go to, but it's not only the 12-week program, which is 12 weeks worth of workouts, it's also workshops to help you perform exercises correctly, perform stretches correctly, so you can get the most from it. Because from the online programs that I see and that I hear about, generally it's just a workout and there's no real emphasis on how to perform the exercises because they're too focused on completing the workout. And it's the same with a lot of trainers in the industry. It's very much focused on completing the workout rather than completing it correctly. So the difference with my program is that I'm trying to help you complete it correctly, but also get the core strength and stability gains from it as well. So part one, we're looking at the teaching points. So what we're going to do, as I mentioned, we're going to work from essentially the head all the way down. But I'm just going to start with let's just say the biggest teaching point, which kind of sets up the rest. And that's basically what I would describe as the straight line. So we want a straight line from the ear, the shoulder, the hip, the knee, the ankle. That's where we want our straight line. So essentially we're coming into this sort of position. This is what we want. This is what we want to create. Now, as I mentioned, we'll start at the head. If we get the ear, the shoulder, and the hip in line, you will have the head in line. That is one of the main things we want to keep because it sets the neck flexors. It sets then the deeper core muscles further down. What a lot of people will do is they will sort of cock their head up, so they will be in this sort of position. This then has effect on the erector spinae muscles further down the back. It also will have an effect on them higher up, but lower down as well, and the neck flexors aren't activated, which doesn't activate or cascade the activation of the deeper core muscles below that. So we need to get that into position. Now this is probably the major one that people don't focus on, and it's what the shoulders are doing. And we can tell what the shoulders are doing by where the forearms are placed. Now what most people will do is they will go into this type of position. So they will go what is known as at the shoulder, internally rotated. So a lot of people don't think this has anything to do with the shoulder. But what you're doing is you're internally rotating the shoulder, which is offsetting the shoulder blade, which again is offsetting the position and not optimizing the joints to get the most from it. So what we want to be able to do is have parallel parallel forearms like so. So what we can then do is we can then set the shoulder. And by setting the shoulder, I mean having it slightly back and slightly down. When we pull it slightly back, we engage traps and rhomboids. When we bring it down, we engage the lats a little bit more. So we would come into this type of position. So we're not rounding the back, we're pulling the shoulder blades in, activating the lats, and holding strong there. So that's the head, essentially the forearms and the shoulder. We're then starting to set the thoracic spine in place. What we would then do is move down into the mid to lower back. So what we want to be doing here is we want to be bracing the abdominals. So we're not sucking our navel towards our spine. That isn't going to stabilize anything. We want to brace the abdominals. That's going to activate more muscles. If we've got lower back pain, it's going to help protect the lower back, but essentially it's building greater core strength and stability and building a greater spine stability through the torso. So what we want to be doing is bracing the abdominals. Now when we brace the abdominals, what we don't then want to be doing is rounding the lower back like so. We want to maintain that natural curve through the spine. When we can create that natural curve through the spine, that optimizes the position of the spine, which optimizes how the muscles work. So we've got that position. If we can then manage that position of the pelvis, we're also then setting again, maintaining the straight line through. What we've then got is below that, the knees and the ankles. Now, the only thing to remember here, if I just turn to my back to it, is essentially we want to keep the heels and the feet vertical. We don't want to be out. You will find some people doing this. If you're pointing your toes out, you're suboptimal at the hip. So we want to be maintaining that position of the hip. So that is just having those feet vertical. Now, the only other thing that we might, again, want to be focusing on is the position of the hip. So we've talked about how it's going to tilt like so. Again, that just doesn't want to be too high. It doesn't want to be too low. It wants to be in the middle. In part 2, although we've been talking about some of them already, we're going to look at some common mistakes that people make. So some that I've mentioned: forearms in, offsets the shoulders. Not the right position of the hips, offsets the spine. But as I've mentioned, what some people can get with the plank is they can get back pain, or if they stay in it long enough, they can get back pain. So a common mistake people make is they just try and hold the plank for as long as possible. Now, this can have a place, but certainly if you're experiencing back pain, it's not useful. So the main thing to do with this one is understand when it's coming on. So if you've got a timer, have it in front of you. And for argument's sake, we're doing a 30-second plank, but the back pain starts at 20 seconds. So what we would do to be able to complete the 30-second plank is I would break that up into 3 blocks. So 3 blocks of 10 seconds. So what I would basically do is I would come down, I would hold for 10, I would then rest, hold for another 10, then rest, hold for another 10, and then rest. With the idea of that rest offsetting the pain. So the pain then doesn't come on in that first set. And then we would repeat set 1, set 2, set 3, like so. So that would be how to break up and manage the pain that people feel. Now again, another way of doing that. What you can do, now I did say try and maintain the straight line, but what you might find is that as people, or as you are doing it, you sort of come into this more position, so you're sagged down. So again, the longer that you're holding it, the more chance you have of sagging down. Now, as I've mentioned, to overcome that, you just don't hold it as long, so you do your 3 blocks of 10 seconds. Or you can just raise the hips ever so slightly, so the torso is a little bit more parallel to the floor, and what then that gives you, if your hips are up slightly, as you start to sag and start to fatigue and you come down, you basically come down into the correct position. So you might just be up ever so slightly and then slowly you come back down. So that would be some easy ways to mitigate and overcome the back pain. If you get it. If you don't get it, then it's not a great worry for you. The second one is the position of the elbows. Now, I've talked about the forearms. They need to be parallel. Now, the other thing that we need to be focusing on when we are in the plank is, are the elbows directly below the shoulders? Because what can happen sometimes, again, is people will come into this position. And this will generally happen as they fatigue and they start to bring their hips up. So you might find that you sort of come into this sort of position. Now, as the hips come up, what will happen, if I go into it, is this will start to happen. So you can see my elbows go in front of my shoulders. Now, essentially, that's just suboptimal all the way through the body and the core's not working properly. You're literally just hanging on for dear life. So what you want to be able to do is get the elbows under the shoulders. So if you do find this starting to happen, it's then to bring the shoulders forward, and that will automatically bring you down into the position. So if you find yourself in that position, you bring the shoulders forward and then you come into that position. And again, what you'll find is that the abdominals are working that much more effectively. In these 2 parts, we've looked at the teaching points and we've looked at common mistakes. Now, with regards to the teaching points, just to quickly recap and summarise them, we want to maintain the straight line. We then want to have head in line, forearms parallel. From the side, we want to have the elbows directly underneath the shoulders. We want to maintain the neutral spine. We want to maintain hips stay in that line. And then straight legs with the widest stance and the feet vertical. When it comes to common mistakes with regards to back pain, we can break it up into blocks. So 3 10-second blocks, for example, to complete a 30-second plank with a 5-second break in between. And then, again, as I've mentioned, the position of the shoulders. So if you do find, as you fatigue, you come up into a sort of triangle type of position, it's then to bring the hips down and let the shoulders go forward, and that will bring you back into the optimum position. And that optimum position will allow you to set all the joints in the right position, which will then set all the muscles in the right position and will help you get the most from that exercise. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully it's given you a few more insights into how to perform the plank correctly. Again, if you want to learn more, just click the link below, go through to the 12-week program. It's all online. Go through the workshops, learn how to do the exercises correctly, learn the common mistakes, learn how to make it harder, learn how to make it a bit easier, and then get stuck into the 12-week workouts. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Chris for Whole Training. I'll speak to you in the next tutorial.